Women's soccer team is participating in the NCAA tournament, their fourth appearance in the tournament, and we'll be talking with head coach Wes Hart here in just a few moments. It's a great story the way that team has really rebounded and played so very well. At home, they were virtually unbeatable this year, outscoring the opponents 32-8. Regretfully, they're opening up on the road tomorrow at Clemson, but we'll be talking with Wes Hart here in just a moment or so. Our special media guest tonight, and it's always great to have this gentleman with us. He used to be on ESPN, now a member of the Fox Sports team. Tom Rinaldi is in town, and he's going to be joining us as our special media guest. And, of course, at the top of the hour, Coach Nick Saban will be here taking your calls and comments. We'd love to hear from you. 877-202-BAMA. 877-202-2262 as you're tuned to Hey Coach, presented by Alfa Insurance. And you know, the best way to keep up with everything that's going on at the university, basketball now in high gear, we mentioned soccer, we've got football obviously going on. You can keep up with everything Alabama with the Roll Tide mobile app. It's presented by Bancorp South, and it's available at the App Store and on Google Play. So why not download the Roll Tide mobile app now? It is absolutely free. It's the best way to keep up with goings-on the Camp Zone. But right now, we invite you to stay tuned. Coming up, more of Hey Coach on the Nick Saban Show. We're live from Baumhauer's Victory Grill, the official watch party location of the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're live tonight on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. We are back. Glad you're with us on this Thursday evening edition of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show. I'm Eli Gold. Glad you're able to be with us. As mentioned, coming up after a little while will be Tom Rinaldi and, of course, Coach Nick Saban at the top of the hour. While we await Coach Wes Hart to join us, the soccer coach, let me bring you up to speed on some great news for basketball. You know, both the men and the women got going on Tuesday, opening up at Coleman Coliseum. Great crowd, great atmosphere for both teams, and both teams won. The ladies won. They were leading by 75 points at one time over Charleston Southern. The men beat Louisiana Tech, so things are looking up there. But signing day now is taken center stage, and the women's basketball team signed the Miss Tennessee basketball from Class A competition, a young lady by the name of Carly Weathers, and that was great news for Christy Curry's team. Carly Weathers is a 5'11 guard from Laredo, Tennessee, and she started in her varsity career all the way, every single game in high school, and again went on to be named Class A Miss Tennessee basketball. She also played for the Alabama Southern Stars circuit team under the guidance of Coach Doug Bush. So great news for the ladies on signing day as Miss Tennessee basketball. Carly Weathers is now a member of the University of Alabama women's team. Meanwhile, on the men's side, the men have signed what is being talked about as the number 3 signing class in the early signing period. A couple of 5-star signees for the first time in program history, and Nate Oates was thrilled about that. The names include Jalen Bradley, he's from Bradenton, Florida, and Brandon Miller from Antioch, Tennessee. Also signing Noah Clowney, he's from Roebuck, South Carolina. Rylan Griffin also signing, and Nick Pringle. But Bradley and Miller are 2 of the highest rated prospects to ever sign at the University of Alabama. And, of course, it's the first time that, since anybody can remember, that 2 top 5-star players have been signed in the same class. So that's how things shaped up for the university. 247sports.com went back in their records to the year 2000 and couldn't find any kind of class and duo the likes of these guys. So great job by Nate Oates and his staff to recruit some of the absolute top stars in all of America. As you know, success breeds success. That's not exactly an Einstein-like statement, but we have seen it over the years in all sorts of sports. And after last year, in which the basketball team just, obviously had such huge success, went through the roof all the way to the Sweet 16, who doesn't want to at least talk to the University of Alabama and consider coming here? And that's exactly what we saw with the announcement of those signees. So great news for the men and the women. This segment of Hey Coach is presented by Everwood Treatment Company. Everwood, the official treated lumber of Alabama athletics. Everwood is wood treated right. You know, one of the other great stories of this week had nothing to do with signing, except it's a guy that Alabama had signed already in the past, and that is our APS Performer of the Week. And again this week, it was Will Anderson who was named the Bednarik Award winner of the week. Will led all defenders with a career-high 12 tackles this past week. He had 4 tackles for loss and a sack and a half against LSU. So the national recognition just continued to roll in for Will Anderson. It's the 3rd time that the Bednarik voters have named him as their player of the week, as he has also earned that honor after the Ole Miss game and after the Tennessee game. So the APS Performer of the Week, again, Will Anderson. And remember, folks, for all of your residential and commercial foundation, waterproofing, pest control, termite, and lawn services needs, go to alabamaprofessional.com. We are live here tonight at Baumhauer's Victory Grill. Again, Wes Hart, the soccer coach, due to join us here shortly. Tom Rinaldi from Fox Sports. It still sounds strange to say that, having enjoyed his work on ESPN for years, but Tom is in town. Did a little work with Coach Saban today. He'll be joining us here in just a short while, and then the coach at the top of the hour to take your calls and comments toll free at 877-202-BAMA. We're coming right back. We've got more hitting your way as we're live tonight in Tuscaloosa on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Welcome back, everybody. Glad you're with us on this Thursday evening edition of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show. Coach Wes Hart, the soccer coach, scheduled to join us here in a moment or so. He's got lots going on. Of course, the Alabama soccer team, as I mentioned, they're making their fourth appearance in the NCAA tournament, and they open up tomorrow against the Clemson Tigers. It's a 3 o'clock match, 3 o'clock Central Time tomorrow. It's going to air on the ACC Network Extra. It'll also be available through the ESPN app for those of you who'd like to watch it. The Crimson Tide is making their fourth appearance in the NCAA tournament on Friday. Their second under Wes Hart. They advanced to the tournament in 2017, and ironically, Alabama and Clemson met that day as well. It was a scoreless first half, as many of you might remember. Then Alabama got a goal from Casey Wirtz before the Tigers responded with back-to-back goals for the win. The Tide also advanced to the tournament back in 1998 and 2011, where it faced Texas A&M and the Miami Hurricanes, respectively. But I'll tell you, this year has just been outstanding. Bama's in the midst of one of their best seasons in over 20 years. They had their best winning percentage in the Southeastern Conference since 1998. The team set a program record for home wins in a single season with 10 of them. They finished the regular season on a 7-game winning streak. They had outscored the opponents 32-8. At home, and that's why I said before, it was sad that the team is opening up on the road in light of how well they have played at home. Of course, they have an all-SEC first-team member, Reina Reyes, who was in charge of the back line and helped the Crimson Tide with 6 shutouts this season. McKinley Crone, the goalkeeper, with 60 saves and 5 shutouts this year. So she has done awfully well. It's just a wonderful, wonderful team, and I know Wes has been building this franchise to the level that it is at today. The Clemson Tigers, meanwhile, enter the matchup tomorrow with a 12-6-1 record. They're making their 8th consecutive tournament appearance after earning an at-large berth to this year's tournament. So, again, it's 3 o'clock tomorrow. The Alabama Crimson Tide and the Clemson Tigers at historic Riggs Field in Clemson, South Carolina. We're live tonight in Tuscaloosa. Coach Nick Saban joins us at the top of the hour. A quick reminder, we're starting to see all the Christmas advertising now, and there's Christmas music on the radio. Remember, Sports Collectibles. They offer authentic Bama memorabilia and collectibles, including autographed items and framed jerseys. All of the signed items carry a certificate of authenticity and a 100% money-back guarantee. So for that Crimson Tide fan on your gift list, remember to shop at sportscollectibles.com, a great location with an outstanding selection of Bama collectible items. Hey, Coach, and the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alfa Insurance. For auto, home, and life insurance, call Alfa. We come back with more in a moment here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Picture.
Welcome back to Baumhauer's Victory Grill here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, you can visit your local Baumhauer's Victory Grill for new flavors this fall, including buffalo dippin' chicken, buffalo chicken etouffee, and fresh Alabama Gulf seafood. Baumhauer's Victory Grill, the official watch party location of the Crimson Tide. And this segment of Hey Coach is presented by My Eye Doctor. My Eye Doctor, with 20 locations to make your next eye appointment convenient and easy. Don't miss a single play this season. Eye care and eyewear really are better together at My Eye Doctor. Visit myeyedr.com to learn more. And what a treat to have this gentleman join us here on the show. He's in town just doing a separate project. He's not involved in the telecast this weekend, but now with Fox Sports. Tom Rinaldi, good to see you, my friend. How are you?
It's great to see you guys again. I've had the pleasure to be with you through the years, and grateful to be asked back.
When they told me you were going to be on, I said, what the heck's he doing in town? So what the heck are you doing in town?
We did a sit-down with Coach. We spent some time with him, and that'll be on Big Noon Kickoff, Fox's pregame show across the country, which leads typically not into an SEC matchup, as you guys know, but a Big 10, a Big 12 sort of matchup, and that's the same. We have Baylor at OU.
Interesting matchup coming up. I don't want you to point fingers at anybody. I'm curious, though, the approach to covering sports from ESPN to Fox. A significant difference, or is it just sports, go out and do what you do?
No, I do think there is a great deal of common ground, at least when it comes to the roles that I have filled, whether that's been sideline in the NFL, where I work on the Buck Aikman crew with Aaron Andrews, or it's the chance to tell the stories of the players and the coaches that we hope personalizes those individuals to people out there and creates a rooting interest. And that's what we've been able to do over the years. We did that just this past weekend with a longer feature on the NFL show, and we've done it, in college on Big Noon now.
And that's what you do best, the interviews. How many of these questions are prepared, and how much do you play off the preceding answer?
I think that's such a good question, Eli, and I think earlier in my career, I lived looking down at the pad way too much and not listening. I know that you know that too, that sometimes you get so consumed with your next question, you're not actually listening to the quality of the answer and where that may lead. And it took me too long to figure that out. So I try to strike the balance there.
Well, you've managed to do it awfully well. Tom Rinaldi with us here. Of course, he'll be heading on to his next assignment after spending the day today with Coach Nick Saban. We're coming right back. The coach is joining us in just a few moments, so don't you go away. You're tuned in to Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alfa Insurance, here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Hey Coach is presented by Alfa Insurance. For auto, home, and life insurance, call Alfa. Our special media guest, Tom Rinaldi, presented by CB&S Bank. Bank anywhere at any time with CB&S Bank's digital solutions. Managing your finances has never been so easy. You see, when you come in, we get a bank sponsor for the media. I mean, we're talking big time here, man.
Settle down. Settle down.
What surprised you, without giving away too much, what surprised you as an answer in your conversation with Coach Saban today?
I don't know that anything he said in particular surprised me. I just think that, Coach is willing, I think, to laugh at himself at times. He's very self-effacing. He's got a great quick wit that people don't see.
Folks don't know about that.
Right. And he often in our conversations points to and credits Terry and Miss Terry as the architect of some really key turning points. And one of them was when he first became aware of the vast difference between the way the public sees him and how he sees himself. And he recounted a conversation with Miss Terry when she said, "You have no one to blame for that other than you. If you don't show them any more of who you are, other than perhaps the person who just shows intensity or a scowl or flashes his
behind
anger,
that podium.
Then that's all people are going to know and take away."
Interesting.
I think the question that he pondered most, the longest pause before answering, is a deceptively simple question, and I think it's one that each of us would pause to answer. Simple question: what do you most wish you could change about yourself?
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to ask you to tell us because I know that's going to be one of the lead answers on your show. But Tom Rinaldi's with us. He'll be along with the coach here for this hour. But right now we have to pause 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network.
Henry.
The Alabama Crimson Tide step out of conference play this weekend to meet the Aggies of New Mexico State University. It's the second meeting ever between these two schools, but it's an important meeting because it's the next game on the schedule in a season where Bama cannot afford another misstep. The Tide and the New Mexico State Aggies take center stage on tonight's November 11th edition of the Nick Saban Show. Here we go! Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey, everybody. Alabama coach Nick Saban here.
This is the Nick Saban Show.
Roll Tide.
Live from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. Presented by Alfa Insurance. For the best agents in the business, call Alfa. Now live, here is your host, Eli Gold.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Baumhauer's Victory Grill, another edition of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show. Eli Gold with our special media guest tonight, Tom Rinaldi. Always great to have you in town, Tom.
Thank you very much.
It's a treat. And Coach Saban, I understand you and Tom had a nice day today, sharing stories, telling jokes, and opening up to one another.
Well, I tell you what, I really miss this guy.
We were saying the same thing.
I really do.
Yeah.
You know, when he was at ESPN, we got to see each other a lot more often, and he's one of the most professional people and has a unique ability when he's interviewing you to make you feel totally relaxed and at ease, and to be yourself and to share information. And I feel some of the best interviews are because of him, at least for me.
I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop right now, and
no,
so is Miss Terry, who's right there. It's written all over her face right now.
It's not going to. This is because I miss you. I just want to show my appreciation.
Yeah.
I just want to show my appreciation for your professionalism. So.
But that, you know, it is the truth, Tom, and we do miss you here, and you have that ability to get people to open up to you, and not every interviewer can do that.
Well, thank you very much. I'm blushing right now, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's quite all right. Since you're blushing, why don't you go ahead and open up with the first question of the evening?
We had such a good visit today, but you know, time is always limited, and you said so many things that I could have followed up on. But Nick, one of the things you said, you have been, given the success of the program, in the position, usually unique, but for you repeatedly, of having to try to back up success with more success. Given the shape of last season, its unique nature and character, this team that returns, wanting that same kind of success, what's different? The goal is the same. What's different in the dynamic of the challenge?
Well, I think it's the personality that you have on each and every team is a little bit different, and I think that's one of the most challenging things for you as a coach. Like last year's team, we had great leadership. We had a lot of older players that had played a lot. They were very confident guys. They knew how to prepare. They went into the games. They played fast. They had fun. They weren't affected by anything that happened in the game. And when you play with guys that have less experience and have played less and are younger, and you can call it competitive maturity, it's a little more challenging to get them to play with consistency. To know how to prepare for the game, to do things right all the time, and how that's going to impact and affect your ability to, you know, sort of be successful. But also you have to deal with the complacency factor. You know, that last year's team had a great sense of purpose. You know, people forget the year before. We got knocked out. We lost at Auburn. We got knocked out. We didn't go to the SEC championship game. We ended up going to the Capital One Bowl or whatever. So the players had something to prove, and they were really sort of with it. And a lot of guys came back because they wanted to prove something. And they were a lot of good players, and they had a lot of experience and a lot of maturity. You know, we had 6 guys that were true freshmen. You know, when we won the 2017 national championship game against Georgia, on the field, on offense, when we won the game at the end of the game in overtime. And those guys were a lot of them on last year's team.
That was remarkable because a number of them had a very clear chance to leave, Nick. And this is when you often talk about, I think this is so important, adding value. We're here to help you maximize your value in all phases of your life. And guys came back collectively.
And I think all those guys did. You know, Najee Harris would have been a 2nd or 3rd round pick. He got picked in the 1st round. Smitty was a 2nd round pick. He got picked in the 1st round. So you're talking about guys making $15, $20 million more, but they had something to really prove. And, you know, this year's team, I love the players on this year's team. But it's a different dynamic when you feel like as a coach, you're always trying to help players make good choices and decisions so that they have a chance to be successful personally, academically, and athletically. but it takes a lot of personal discipline on their part. I always talk about feeling versus choice. You're going to do what you feel like doing, or you're going to choose to do the things you need to do to be successful. Well, that takes a lot of self-discipline, a lot of mental toughness to force yourself to do things that you don't feel like doing. And then on the other hand, you got to make a good choice and decision about knowing things that you're not supposed to do, that you want to do. You don't need to do those things either, because they can have a detrimental effect on your ability to be successful. So this is all a part of growing up, and I think you're going to have those kinds of ups and downs as you lose 25% of your team and you replace those guys with younger players on your team. So it just becomes a work in progress to be consistent. But I do think the one thing that has made this program sort of be able to sustain success is we've always really tried to get the players to make good choices and decisions, to do the right things so that they create value for themselves. And the players that buy into that inevitably do very well. They do very well in school. They do very well in their life, even if they didn't play in the NFL. But they do very well because they created great habits. And that's the thing that we're always striving for. And sometimes we feel like we're having a little more success than others, but it's a work in progress. It's like being a parent. Everybody out there that's been a parent, that sometimes your children don't do things exactly like you'd like for them to, and you get a little frustrated, but you try to figure out a better way. And that's what we're always trying to do with, the players on our team. And because all those individual players make the team what it is. And that's what we're still working to try to find, that chemistry and identity on this team where we can play consistently. And we need to do it now. It's the end of the season. Mm-hmm. It's November. For all those things that we're talking about, we still create an opportunity for ourselves. If we can finish the right way, we can have a great season.
And, of course, the fans who always say, well, what's coming up next week? You can't look past this week. This team, no, they're not an SEC team. We're not going to try and sell that to the listening audience. But these kids can play football.
Well, everybody can play. You should always respect your opponent, and technically you should respect what they do, because if you don't technically respect what they do, you can't ever prepare for the game correctly. So exactly. You're never going to go out there and be able to execute the way you want to. But from our team's perspective, this is about who we are as a team. This is about how we need to play, how we need to improve, and go out there and play with consistency and get 11 guys doing what they're supposed to do on the same page, so that we can have more consistency in our execution. The way we played offense last week is certainly not the way we want to play offense. I think somebody told me this is the first time in 36 games we didn't score over 30 points.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, so, I didn't know that stat. Somebody said that to me. And so to only score 20 points in a game and really not have a lot of other opportunities, to score either, because we didn't consistently move the ball. And I'd say we need to do a lot better job as coaches, because there were too many times in the game where our players were put at a disadvantage because they were not prepared for what the other team was doing. But there was a significant number of times where we knew exactly what we were doing and we didn't execute it very well. So the combination of those two things is something that we really need to improve on this week. And practice has been good. I think the players have had pretty good attention to detail. But I tell you, I always like to see teams compete the way our team competed in the fourth quarter of the game. Made all the plays in three series where they could have scored, made all the plays we needed to make to stop them, to be able to have a chance to win the game. So that competitive character is also a plus and a bonus that everybody should acknowledge and appreciate as well.
Definitely. On the phone, Coach, is our first caller of the night, Pee Wee, joining us from Grand Bay, Alabama. And, of course, since he was last with us on this radio show, his mom passed away, as you and I have both acknowledged on other programs. Pee Wee, it's great to have you with us, and again, accept all of our condolences for your loss.
Thank y'all very much.
Pee Wee,
Coach, how you doing?
Our thoughts and prayers are with you. There's never anything that anyone can say that's actually good. When something like this happens, you lose someone close to you, like your mother. But we also have to have gratitude for all the time that we had, the love that we had, and the lessons that we learned. And that's something that we'll always remember, so that will always keep her alive in our heart and mind.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Coach, for those kind words. I really appreciate it. You touched a little bit on what I was going to ask this evening. You had made mention earlier in the week that during the game you needed to do, or the coaches needed to do a better job of the in-game adjustments. When you have a team like LSU that played a lot of stuff that you had never seen before and blitz what maybe seemed like 80% of the entire night, how tough is it to make those in-game adjustments under those circumstances?
Well, I think you have to systematically have ways to that the players have background that you can draw on to be able to say, hey, Florida did this, and this is how we had to adjust. You know, the one thing that we always do on Monday is anything we had an issue or problem with in a game, we do what we call a corrections period. It has nothing to do with the next team we're playing, all right? But there's so much copycat that goes on in all of football, in high school, college, NFL. You see a team that does something or has a blitz that works against you, you're going to see it again. If, you know, we can't match a pass pattern on defense, we're going to see it again. So you have to be able to adapt and adjust. So if we make those corrections after every game, all right, we should have given our players some sense of what to do if those situations ever came up again. And that's a responsibility that we all have. But because they had never done those things, it wasn't fresh in our mind, and we didn't, you know, have the tools in some cases that we'd like. But we've corrected all those things, and I think that we won't have those issues in the future.
And Tom, you see, that's what I love about, and Pee Wee, thanks so much for calling in. That's what I love about this show. We get guys like Pee Wee who just call in and start talking about adjustments and in-game changes, this, that. Do you see that at other schools as you travel around? Are the fan bases as in tune to what's going on as they are here?
I mean, the Tide fan base is unique. You know, I know the entire conference lives under the motto, it just means more. But if there's a capital city of it meaning more, this is obviously it.
This is it. This is it. And it's a good thing.
It sure is.
I mean, it's what makes it special to be the coach when you have so many people that have so much interest and so much passion in what you do. And some people get upset sometimes because maybe we get criticized, but sometimes we deserve to get criticized because we didn't do things as well as we should have. But we're our own best critics, I can promise you all that, because we're looking at it every day. And when we're not doing things to the Bama standard, and whether it's coaching or, you know, getting the players to do things the way we want them to do it, you know, we're working hard to try to fix it every day.
What's one piece of criticism at any point in the journey? One piece of criticism that's motivated you?
Losing. I mean, look, I think everybody...
Why is defeat a more potent experience than victory for you?
Well, it's not just for me. I think it's human nature. I think everybody out there...
You think for most people, they focus more on defeat than victory?
No, I don't know if they focus more on defeat, but I think everybody has fear of failure. I mean, anybody that's in this room, all right, that ever went and took a test when you were in school and you weren't anxious and nervous and fearful about what the result was going to be, stand up. If you've never experienced that, how many people you see standing up?
Zero.
Yeah. All right, so now, if you really, really prepared well, you knew the information, you were 100% confident in what you were going to do, that anxiety kind of wasn't as great, right? Because you had confidence because you had prepared the right way. So I think we all have a little bit of fear of failure, and that's a motivating factor for us. And everybody wants to win, and what I've always tried to do, which keeps me away from fear of failure, and it also keeps me away from thinking about winning, is staying focused on not the outcome, but what you have to do to get the outcome. That's always been what I try to do. And if you do that as a player and you do it as a competitor, you don't have the anxiety because you're not thinking about the outcome. You're thinking about what you have to do to get it all the time. and it makes it a lot more fun to play.
It does. That's Coach Nick Saban, our special media guest, the great Tom Rinaldi in town joining us. We're coming right back. We've got a lot more from Baumhauer's Victory Grill. The Nick Saban Show is presented by Alfa Insurance here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Here's the snap. Pressure off the edge. Here's the throw. Mechie open. Touchdown, Alabama. He cut away from Dwight McLaughlin coming to the near sideline. And despite the pressure coming in on Bryce Young, he hit the man in a pinpoint fashion. And Bama takes the lead. Part of Alabama's performance against the LSU Tigers a weekend ago. Don't forget this Saturday, bright and early, an 11 o'clock kickoff. We're on the air at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning from Bryant-Denny Stadium as we welcome you back. This segment of the Nick Saban Show presented by Royal Furniture, family owned and operated for 75 years. Royal Furniture has locations in Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Memphis, and Jackson, Tennessee for your shopping convenience. Coach, we have a question from the Nick Saban Radio Show blog. And the first question tonight is from Robbie in Niceville, Florida. Says, hey, Coach, how do you feel about our team's strength and conditioning heading into this final stretch of the season? Lots of big games ahead, as if we didn't know, but thank you and roll tide. It's a good question from Robbie.
Right. Well, I think it's really, really good. We're much more scientific in the way we approach all this stuff now, and you heard me talk about this before, about being able to evaluate every guy's explosiveness, every guy's speed, in each and every practice, how they do in the weight room in terms of what their explosiveness is, what their power is, when they lift weights on Monday and Thursday. So we have a much better way to monitor this than in the old days when you just kind of eyeballed them and said, hey, everybody looks tired, so we should practice less, or somebody's telling you we're practicing too much. Now there's a very scientific way to do it. But it also is a very helpful coaching tool for us, just like this week. Monday, when the players were in the weight room, they had very good explosive movement and very good explosive power. So Tuesday, when we go out and practice, every group on the team was negative except the defensive line. They're the only ones. So I could say after practice, I said, hey, look, guys, we're not practicing the way we need to practice because yesterday you had really good explosive power, speed, and movement. And today, just because we're practicing, just because of maybe who we're playing, I don't really know. So maybe you don't feel real good today. but it goes back to that feeling versus choice thing. And you don't have the same kind of explosive movement. So did you physically get tired from yesterday to today, which we really didn't do anything to make you tired? All right, so what is the reason that we're not practicing the way we need to practice? So we can really catch them, in a lot of ways now that we really couldn't catch them before.
The old big brother is watching. Hey, Coach, we have a future Crimson Tider right here to your right, and he has a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Coach Nick, after your narrow win against LSU, what has been your key message to your players this week?
The team message to the players this week was really all about, you've heard me talk about this before, is did we play up to our capabilities? What was the capability gap relative to how we competed, how we played in the game, and what we're capable of? Now, different parts of the team have really a different answer for that. The defense played pretty well, especially, at the end of the game to get the stops. But the offense was very inconsistent in moving the ball. We didn't do a very good job of, running the ball in the game at all. So there were a lot of things to improve on. But one of the messages to the team was, one of the earmarks of this program has always been winning on the line of scrimmage and playing with toughness up front. And that's something that we got to get back. And that usually starts with the offensive and defensive line. And that's something that, our players have to challenge themselves to do. And I think they tried to do it this week. So hopefully that'll carry us through the end of the season.
Thanks for being here tonight. Great question. Thank you. Tom, why don't you jump on in again?
A moment ago, you asked the room, you talked about the value of preparation, and you asked the room, does anyone stand up if they had ever sort of not felt nervous about an important test, etc. When are you most nervous in a game week?
Most nervous in a game week? I think the hardest time for me when it comes to is actually right before the game. Not before we go out. As soon as we go out for pregame warm-up and everybody starts running around, I'm fine. When I get on the sidelines, I get the headset on, I'm fine. But when I'm sitting in the locker room for an hour, getting dressed, I usually write some notes on what I'm going to say to the team. I have this little card that I do that's pregame checklist that you go over with the coaches when you come off the field. I have this little, when do you go for two chart and all this. So I kind of look at that stuff, but I'm really kind of shaking my leg the whole time. And that's when I'm most nervous. But once we go out, once we start pregame, once we get into it, then I'm not nervous at all.
I'm going to suggest, are you most nervous then because there is nothing more you can do to prepare?
I think you hit the nail on the head.
That's it. Let's go to the phones, gentlemen. Wesley is down in Mobile with a question. Hi, Wesley. Good evening.
Hi, Eli. How are you all?
We're great. Thank you, sir. Glad you called. What's up?
Coach, I was wondering if you could explain y'all's rationale with our last possession in the game. My math may be off, but I thought we were pretty close to being able to completely run out the clock if we got a first down. And it seemed with those timeout usage that we were sort of not going for the kill, I guess, in the game to get off the field instead. What was your thought process about that?
You talking about at the end of the game?
Yes, sir.
Are you talking about the end of the game? Yeah, we needed to make a first down because they had timeouts. They used all their timeouts. We knew they could get the ball back with about a minute to go and probably 70 yards to go with no timeout. All right, so I didn't think they were going to score a touchdown in that situation. So if we would have passed the ball on third down to make a first down, and it would have been incomplete, then there would have been a minute 40 seconds to go in the game, and they would have had a much better chance to score a touchdown in the game. So you always have to make a choice. All right, are you going to try to win the game on offense? And to me, that depends on the circumstance and the situation. They have no timeouts. They're going to get the ball back with a minute to go in the game, all right, with no timeouts. You tackle them one time in bounds, all right, and the clock's going to go down to 30. And they've got to throw the ball down the field. And so that was the reasoning for what we did. Now, let's just say there's 2 minutes to go in the game or more time to go in the game. I think you have to do everything you need to do to get a first down. But I didn't like the play that we ran. Even though it was 3rd and 8, if we'd have just ran a direct run, maybe you got a chance to pop it or you don't. But we were going to get the 40 seconds off the clock and get it from 2:10 to 1:10 or 1:20 so that they would get the ball back with about a minute to go in the game with no timeouts. And we thought it was with 70 yards to go that it was in our favor. So it was just the way we chose to try to win the game. And it really worked. So that was the thinking. So if we would have thrown a pass and it would have been incomplete and they got the ball back and scored a touchdown, everybody would be saying now, why did you throw the ball on 3rd down? So I get it. It is what it is. But at least it worked this time.
And that's the bottom line right there, exactly.
Why don't people, I shouldn't have framed the question this way. I'll ask it in a more open-ended way. How hard is it to win?
It is really hard to win.
Why don't people appreciate or respect that enough?
Because when you win all the time, people lose respect for winning. Yep. They just expect it, and they don't really. And, it happens to players. I think it's happened to our players at times. We won 19 games in a row. We went to Texas A&M. I thought we had a horrible week. I didn't, the media was saying A&M lost 2 games in a row. They're not very good. I don't think we had the proper respect. I don't think we knew what we were getting into. I thought A&M probably had one of the best teams in the league. They just lost their quarterback early on. They were playing a young guy. He had struggled for a couple games, but if he ever played better, which I knew he was capable of, they would be back to being a really good team, and it would be a real tough game for us. But you lose respect for winning. But really what you lose is respect for what you have to do to win. And that's a major problem because you develop bad habits. You don't develop good habits in practice. You don't do things the right way. You're not taking care of yourself the way you need to. You're not sleeping. You're not eating. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. And then all of a sudden when you get to the game, everybody wants to win when you get to the game. All right? But if you didn't do the right things to prepare yourself, then you really can't play the way you'd like to play when you get challenged by another good player. And then you get frustrated, which affects your performance even more when things don't go well. And your expectation is that everything is going to go well. We're just going to show up and win. And you get punched in the nose and it's not working that way. It's really the wrong mindset, and it's not going to help you be successful at all.
We're coming right back. Don't go away. We've got lots more with the coach and with Tom Rinaldi from Fox Sports. We're live here in Tuscaloosa on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Johnson waits, claps his hands, looks at his running back, gets the snap, stands in, down he goes. Will Anderson, come on down. Will Anderson continuing to excel at Alabama, and of course getting more and more national honors each and every day. He's getting this award and that award, and we're thrilled for the job that Will Anderson has been doing. Welcome back. The Nick Saban Show continues. This segment being brought to you by New Coke Zero Sugar. New look, improved taste. New Coke Zero Sugar. Coach, we've got another question from the Nick Saban Show blog on AL.com. Ben in Charlotte, North Carolina says, we continue to recruit at such a high level. I am curious how much time each day, on average, that you spend on recruiting. Keep up the great work and roll Tide.
Well, I think it varies. I think you have to recruit every day to be a good recruiter. For me, during the season, last night is recruiting night for me. So I try to contact at least 8 to 10 players each and every week in recruiting. So I'll talk to 4 or 5 guys on Wednesday. I talked to, I think, 3 guys before I came on the radio show. I'll talk to a couple more tonight. On Fridays when we have home games, we spend the first hour or hour and a half of the day during recruiting evaluations. And then we will have at least one recruiting meeting on Thursday each and every week, like who's going to go see who play on Friday night, how many coaches are going out, how many are staying here. But of course, in the off season, we are spending way more time than that, on recruiting. Just like this last week, we had 7 official visits for the LSU game. So I spent the whole day before the game, every minute on Saturday that I wasn't with our team, which was started at like 10:45. We took a walk, and we had a staff meeting before that, and we had a recruiting meeting in that. But then from like 11:30 till church at 1:30 and pregame at 2, I was talking to recruits. And then from 2:15 until 3:35 when we had walkthrough, I was talking to recruits. All right, so I spent the whole day talking to recruits. I spent the whole pregame when I was sitting there by nervous time talking to recruits. All right, when we get to the stadium. And then we had probably 500 people after the game that I talked to about recruiting. Some very good players and some very good recruits. Then Sunday we had all 7 to the house. All right, and their families, probably 80 people on Sunday morning. I go 8:45 church. I get home at 10. The house is full of people. We do the whole thing. Maybe about 11:30, I start taking them back, and then I talk to 7 people and their families, 7 families, the players and their families. And normally I would start on the next team about 12:30. We didn't start on the next team till about 2:30. So it varies. Now, we don't have any official visits this weekend, even though we'll have a lot of recruits come to the game. Next week when we play Arkansas, we'll have official visits. I think we have 5. So it's a lot of time spent by a lot of people because the number one thing you need to do in recruiting is you got to make sure you're giving people the adequate amount of attention so that they understand the kind of relationships they'll have here, when they come here.
Nick, I think that's for anyone who hears that, what you just laid out, who is less familiar with the beats of what the job entails, that's pretty mind-blowing. And for many coaches, that's the first sign that they're no longer as passionate. They wane in terms of that level of demand in recruiting, which opens up a door to ask this question. There are so many guys who ultimately get overwhelmed by the pressures or worn down by the pressures and responsibilities and expectations of being a head coach. Why hasn't that happened for you?
The man asks good questions.
Ask good questions. I think it's probably because I do have to say that there are times during the season where I do get tired and I do get worn down to some degree. But I think the key to the drill for me is if I can stay on a routine that's very manageable for me. In other words, I could tell you what I'm going to do every minute of the week from Sunday when I go to church until the game's over on Saturday night. I can, and as long as I can do that, I'm good. But when things happen that take me out of that, and the biggest thing for me to overcome now is when we play a night game on the road and we get home at 2 o'clock in the morning and I still get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I do everything that I do on Sunday and it takes me about 3 days to recover. You know, in the old days, you know, I could do that and the next day I'd be fine. And when I worked for Belichick, we did that every day. We did it every day. I mean, we got home at 2 o'clock every day. And we got up at 6 o'clock the next day every day. I'm talking about for the whole season. So, but I could do it then. I don't know if I could do it now. But if I can stay on my little routine, you know, I'm good. I don't get wore down and I'm good. But, boy, sometimes, you know, those late games get me.
I hear you. Coach, a visitor right here to your right with a question for you. Good evening, sir.
How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. What are some of the biggest challenges you're going to face this week, or you have faced this week, faced in New Mexico State?
Well, you know, these are the kind of teams that when you play these teams, just like I said last week on this show, LSU is a dangerous team, because they're going to do everything and throw the kitchen sink at you, but you don't know which one's coming and what they're going to do because they have nothing to lose. Like the first time, they fake punt. I mean, they actually called timeout to fake punt. You know, I like to kick myself because we should have changed punt safe up on them, and then it'd have really been messed up, and I didn't do that. We did it at halftime because we hadn't practiced it, but we should have done it. All right, so like all the blitzing that they did, I mean, it's like they have nothing to lose and everything to gain, so you're going to get their best shot, and you're going to get a lot of things that you haven't prepared for. I think when you play in games like this team is a lot like Mississippi State. They'll probably throw the ball 65, 70 times in the game.
Wow.
And if they hit those balls and you're not really on your toes in the passing game, you know, a lot of things can go wrong in the passing game, but a lot of things can go right. You can make a lot of explosive plays too. And if you have a couple breakdowns, you know you're letting people in the game. And then their style of defense is lots of pressure, lots of plugging backers, lots of things that we have not handled well, which this is really a good thing for us because it's made us practice against this type of stuff all week long. So that's a good thing. So when you're playing these kind of teams, they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So to see a throwback pass to the quarterback or whatever, you know, reverse, throw it back to the quarterback, throw it down. So those are the kind of things that are difficult to prepare for, and your players got to be able to play on principle. But then the other challenge is play 5 SEC games in a row. They're all big games. All right, now you're playing a game that's not an SEC game. Everybody wants to get relief syndrome. You know what relief syndrome is? All right, we got an easy game this week. I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to prepare like I need to. I don't have to practice like I always do. And then you go out and play not so good. I've been in these games now. You know, when I was at LSU, we lost to UAB. All right, and when I came here the first year, we lost to ULM. Go pump some gas after you do that and see what the guy at the window tells you. I've been there.
What does he tell you?
I have my national. I don't wear a national championship ring anymore. I was telling him to get gas and pay the guy, and he said, "What's that?" I said, "It's my national championship game. We're going to do the same thing here." After we lost to ULM, he said, "We'll never do it while that Nick Saban's a coach."
He's still pumping gas, and you're wearing tons of rings, though. You don't let that go by. Hey, let's go to Atlanta for our next phone call. Demetrius is with us on the telephone. Hey, Demetrius, how are you?
Hey, I'm fine. It's the first time ever getting to talk to Coach. That's pretty amazing to me.
All right, Demetrius, you're on, baby.
I just wanted to know about how you feel about Bill O'Brien being in the press box versus being down on the field like past offensive coordinators.
Being down on the field or in the press box?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You know, I think that we've had success with guys being in both places. And I think that it really is up to the individual. And I've talked about this before. It's much easier to call the game in the press box. When I was a college coordinator at Michigan State, I called the game from the press box because you can lay all your calls out in front of you and you can see what you want to do, and it actually helps you. And in between series, you can look at what you called, what you didn't call, what you want to call next. When you're on the sidelines, you got to be like a guy that's taking the numbers without paper and pencil, man. You got to know everything in your head. You got to know every call, every signal, and it's got to come right now. When they say they got 4 wideouts in a game, what are you going to call? Well, it scared me to death when I went to the Cleveland Browns with Belichick, and he said, you have to be on the field. You have to be on the field. You cannot be in the press box as a coordinator.
Why?
Because I want you on the sidelines because you're going to do all the presentations to the defensive players. You'll be the ones that can make, the adjustments with them and so forth. So I just don't like coordinators being in the press box. That was his philosophy. So I went on the sidelines, and I learned the hard way how hard it is to call the game and signal the plays. And then have the head coach screaming in your ear not to do that while you're trying to make that decision. So that was really hard. So I'll tell you this story. I had a thing with Pepper Johnson, who was the Mike linebacker when I was at the Browns, and I would signal the defense. And Bill would be saying, no, don't do that. So we actually lost a game because I changed the call once. To
what he wanted?
To what he wanted. So I told Pepper after that, I said, look, Pepper, I said, I'm going to give you a signal, and you touch your face mask when you got the signal. And if Bill wants to change after that, we're done. We're done. I'm going to say, he looked away, I can't give him another signal. And that's how we operated the rest of the time. If Bill knew that, he'd probably kill me. But anyway, back to your question. All right, so it's actually easier and more effective to be a play caller in the press box unless you feel totally comfortable being on the field. Bill has done it both ways. We thought with our staff and the situation on our staff, and he felt more comfortable being in the press box. All right, so... And I actually think, he's done a pretty good job. I think we all had a bad game last week. He'd be the first to say that, and me too, because we're responsible for what happens on the field, and it wasn't good, especially on that side of the ball. So, but I don't think that's a reason to question what we've done all year. I mean, we were the number 1 scoring team in the SEC, I think, and, last week was not good.
We're coming right back. Great stories on this show, huh? That's one of the many things I love about these Thursday night get-togethers. We're returning more of the Nick Saban Show. It's presented by Alfa Insurance. For auto, home, and life insurance, call Alfa. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Rice backpedals, has time, loads up, looks long. Jamison Williams got it behind the defense. He is gone. Touchdown, Alabama. 58 yards. It was a beauty of a combination as Alabama, of course, goes on to defeat the LSU Tigers by a final of 20-14. From Fox Sports, Tom Rinaldi is with us this evening. Tom, jump in with another question for the coach. He is busily signing some pictures up here on the stage. What else is on your mind, Tom?
Nick, just a simple and quick question. I've had the opportunity to get a chance to have these conversations with you now for more than a decade and a half, and I brought this up with you today. How would you describe your sense of humor?
Where do you come up with these questions? I would say most people would say I have a terrible sense of humor. That's what I would assume.
You really don't.
But people that know me and know me well know that that's probably not true. And I think the players would tell you the same thing, that that's not true. But from a public perception standpoint, I would say most people think I'm very serious, don't have any fun, don't smile very much. And that's not really true. It's just not what they see.
You guys have been up here giggling the whole during the commercial break. There was like a couple of hyenas going at it up here. So that's right. That really is. The man has a great sense of humor. Coach, the clock on the wall says it is time for your final word of the week, presented by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing?
Well, I think it's really important for our team to continue to establish an identity as a team. I don't really think we're, 9 games into the season, and I don't think we've done that because we don't seem to have an ability to, success is defined by consistency and performance. And even though we win games, our performance has not always been consistent as we'd like for it to. We'd like to say we'd like to dominate the competition, and that's not something we've done on a consistent basis. So that's still an identity of toughness and discipline that you need, I think, to have a championship team. We've had championship teams before. We know what they're like. We know what kind of identity you have to have internally on those teams when it comes to these intangible things. And that's something that we still have to prove that we can do on a consistent basis. We've done all those things at times. We just have not done them on a consistent basis. So this game is an opportunity. We respect our opponent, but this is an opportunity for us to try to establish that kind of an identity for 60 minutes in a game. I think we only played one game this year. That was at Mississippi State after we got beat by Texas A&M, where we played a really good 60-minute game. Both sides of the ball, 100%. And that's something that we have to establish because as we play better teams down the road, and I'm talking about the rest of the season, we got tough games to play against good teams. And if we don't do that on a consistent basis, and those are the things that, you have to create for yourself. And I think that's only going to happen, and we talked about this last week, that's only going to happen when people are accountable to do what they're supposed to do, and they challenge each other to be accountable internally. You didn't hear this, but last week, I gave this speech about what's everybody's number one fear. It's speaking in front of 1,000 people. That's everybody's number one fear. So we also carry that same fear into telling our friend something that he needs to do that would help him be more successful or be better, but we don't want to hurt his feelings or we don't want to make him mad. All right, so we're afraid we're going to do that, so we don't do it. And does that really help our friend? Does that really help our teammate we would be much better off to confront and demand that they do the right thing, not in a positive way. And that's where leadership, really creates a lot of accountability internally on your team. And I think that's got to happen on this team. It's got to continue to grow and develop. And I think if it does, we can finish the way we want to. But it's going to start with this game this weekend. We love playing in Bryant-Denny Stadium. I know it's an early game, but I hope everybody comes out and is enthusiastic and supports the team like we need to.
Definitely. Yeah. Coach, thanks as always, sir, for your time. Great to have you with us. That's Coach Nick Saban. Tom Rinaldi, in the moment we have remaining, has there been anybody that you have just been in awe of after you finished interviewing them? I know for me, sitting down with the great coach Eddie Robinson, sitting down with John Wooden, I said, man, that was cool. Who's on that list for you?
I think the list is way too long, to tell you the truth, because when you tell stories and you share someone's story, I'm perpetually in awe of two things: what people share and the strength they have to bear it. And if we can tap into that, I think somehow we don't really respect that enough in one another often enough, because people are amazingly strong and they are amazingly compassionate.
Yes, they are.
When they are recognized and appreciated and connected. And sharing a story, as simple as it is, sometimes can connect us. It leads to understanding before judgment. That's what a story can do. Many times the stories we share, I'm left in awe of what people have been willing to share and what they bear.
Well said, my friend. Great to have you in town, Tom. Thanks for being on the
Eli.
show. Take
Thank
care
you.
of yourself. We're coming back to wrap it up on this Thursday evening, right after this, on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.